Whether you're 25 or 85, self-care matters. In this episode of Aging Unscripted, we'll talk about what changes and what doesn't when it comes to taking good care as we age. Welcome to Aging Unscripted, a fresh take on what it means to age. Here we challenge assumptions, spark new thinking, and explore how we can age with purpose and possibility. I'm Jill Vitale Awesome, and I am privileged to serve as the president and CEO of Christian Living Communities, a nonprofit, multi-site senior living organization based in Denver, Colorado. And in studio with me today, as always, is Pam Sullivan, our vice president. Hello, everyone. In philanthropy. Yeah, thanks for always being here, Pam.
Yep.
And joining us today is Danica Denton, and we are so excited to have Danica here. She's a licensed professional counselor with Grace Counseling, and she helps people navigate life transitions, emotional wellness, relationships, and personal growth. And our conversation today is all about self-care, how our needs may change or may not as we age, and that really it's more than bubble baths, even though we were just saying bubble baths matter too.
They matter, especially at specific stages.
Absolutely. Welcome, Danica. We're so happy to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. And this is such an important topic, so I'm really glad we're talking about it today.
Absolutely. So, a lot of people talk about self-care, right? You'll look at a magazine or there's all kinds of, or on the internet, right? There's all kinds of articles about self-care, but people define it really differently. Mm-hmm. So as a licensed professional counselor, how do you define it? How do you see it?
Yeah, I think self-care is one of those buzzwords right now. Mm-hmm. But I think a good definition is it's intentional and it's attending to what you need that promotes your overall well-being. And then I use a model for self-care in my practice. It's an acronym SPIRE. So it's really showing how it's encompassing all of who you are. It's not just focused on mental health. It's not just focused on physical health. So that acronym, it stands for spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, and emotional. So when we're talking about self-care, we want to address those 5 main categories.
It's so interesting. We just had our leadership summit, and we were sharing with our teams our approach to community life. And all your SPIRE really overlays with what our pillars. You know, we have social, physical, spiritual, emotional. So it really overlays how important it is. What are the misconceptions that you often hear or experience or people come to you with about self-care?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's 2 main ones that I think of. First misconception is that self-care is all about pleasure and relaxation. That's kind of like the bubble bath thing. Mm-hmm. It's just about, feeling good in the moment. But that's not what self-care is. Sometimes self-care is hard. Sometimes it's challenging, and it's long-term rather than just the immediate gratification. And then a second misconception is that self-care is selfish, that you're prioritizing yourself over everyone else. And I think for people who are in caregiving professions or have families that they've been caring for, it's really hard to put that aside and to attend to your own needs as well. It's not selfish. It's you are taking care of yourself. And when you do that, you are better able to show up and engage and be the roles that you need to be. And take care of other people when you're coming from a place of health and wellness rather than emptiness.
I think it's such a key important because I was thinking about when my children were little, and you're a working mom and you come home and you're like, I have got to give all of my attention, all of myself to these kids who I haven't seen all day because I've been working. And then you completely forget yourself. Mm-hmm. And then getting back to what the important times of bubble baths, that was one of mine. I got to take 15 minutes just for myself. So it's not bubble baths, but it is that time for yourself. And how do you get past that? And for older adults, they may feel the same way. But how do you get past that guilt feeling of like, okay, there's about 10 million other things I should be doing. I'm ticking them off in my head. Mm-hmm. How do I get past that guilt?
I think people who come into my office, guilt is the number one thing that they mention when they talk about self-care, that it feels guilty to do something for themselves. So it really is about identifying where that guilt comes from. Like, what do you believe about self-care, right? Kind of identifying those core beliefs you have, where you learned them from, and kind of where that went wrong, right? Maybe that's not true. What can we do to form a healthier thought process around it? So it's identifying the core beliefs and trying to challenge those. And I think it's really, you just have to do it, right? Once you start doing the self-care, taking care of your own needs, and you feel healthier, the guilty feeling will go away.
Yep. And you can handle things a lot better.
Yes.
So how do you know if it's self-care or if it's trying to avoid things? And I have a question. Is binge watching Netflix self-care?
Are you talking from self-experience?
Maybe, maybe not. No, they're like, how do you know? Like, are you just avoiding things, or are you really caring for yourself?
Yeah, that's another great question. I think you have to get back to what was the purpose of self-care. And a lot of that is that you're restoring yourself, right? You want this practice, whatever it is you're doing, to be restorative. If it brings you to that place of well-being long-term,
Right, even if
probably
it's
self-care.
probably my
entertainment tonight.
Maybe for time, right? If it's the binging, if it's ongoing, then the question really is, what am I avoiding?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And then figuring that out, because avoidance long-term is actually going to increase anxiety.
Yes.
We don't want to avoid things that are necessary.
Yes.
So it might feel good in the short term, right? You might just have like that gratification, but long-term, if you're avoiding that, maybe what actually needs to happen is have a conversation with someone that's hard, set a boundary, just engage in something that is beneficial long-term rather than short-term.
Right.
You mentioned set a boundary, and my mother is really working on practicing self-care, and she does her exercise and all that good stuff. It's something that she's really been talking about, and we've talked about this a little bit as you age. Some people say, well, I just don't care as much anymore. But it's not that you don't care. It's just you've learned to set boundaries and what no longer serves you. How do people go through that process so that it's a positive for them rather than a negative? Instead of saying, I give 0 bleep, bleep, bleeps, it's more around, I've learned that this no longer serves me, or I can set a boundary. What does that look like?
Yeah, I think another phrase would be, I know what matters in my life.
Right? I like that. No longer positive. Thank you, Danica.
Yeah, it's not I don't care. It's I know what does matter, right? It's more focused on what is good in your life rather than the negative things, right? So I value my family rather than I feel alone. So you're focused on what you do have in your life rather than what you don't have, I think is one. Yeah, boundaries are challenging in any season of life, and just like identifying when a boundary is necessary can be challenging. So I think it's very tailored to a specific situation too, of like how that works, what that looks like, what's needed. But I go back to that SPIRE model. So are there any parts of that model where you're feeling like you need more or you need less, right? If the relational category is very draining, maybe some boundaries around some of the relationships are needed.
That's great. Do you see self-care, or the way we approach self-care, changing as we age? Like, is it different at different ages, or is it the same? Or
Yes. So I think the principles stay the same, but how we approach it might look different. So when you're in your 20s and 30s, your focus might be on creating the habits and forming good routines, and you're establishing your friendships and your maybe your spouse. So you're forming good communication habits. And then later, mid-age, you have so many more responsibilities with career, taking care of family members. It really is about, okay, I need to say no. I need to prioritize myself. I need to set a boundary.
You kind of are in survival sometimes.
Sometimes, yes. And so that question of what do I need right now is so important. And then as we age, even more so, it becomes more about accepting things. So processing grief, right? That's a form of self-care rather than avoiding, but processing the life transitions that you're going through and accepting things, right? Accepting that, this is what I'm able to do. And that's great. And it's different from when I was 20. And that's
okay. I was talking with we were at Holly Creek yesterday for an amazing event. And I was talking with one of the women that lives there, and she was talking about how she recently gave up driving, right? And so we think about grief as losing a person, but it's also, she's like, yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
And but here's what how I'm working my way through it and figuring it out. But it's not fun.
Right.
And I felt like, well, that's good to acknowledge that we don't always have to put on this, happy face and pretend everything's fine when it isn't, right?
Right. And I think that's part of processing the emotion of it, is working through, yeah, I really don't like this. And then the other side is, okay, what am I able to do? And the other part is making meaning of life, right? So that's another part of self-care as we age, is making meaning, still finding that purpose, right? And connecting to that purpose through whatever season of life you're going through.
Now, that matters a lot, doesn't it? Something other than yourself.
Yes.
You kind of touched on this a little bit, but it's a question that comes to my mind. Like, I love the quote, I do the best I can until I know better. When I know better, I do better. And I think the aging process gives you that gift, because you learn and you might want to try and make a change and do better. But sometimes it's hard to put down that way you did something, or the way you thought of something, and make space for a new way of thinking, to make space for, I used to really hold on tight to this, but it's no longer serving me. I'm going to put it down. Do you have any tips for people when they come to that idea and then it's hard to figure out how to move past?
Yeah, I think two key qualities to focus on are flexibility, adaptability, right? So how can I be flexible? How can I hold this thing loosely? Part of meaning making, I think, is to recognize that it did have a place for you at one time. So recognizing that, being grateful, having gratitude for that. And then the flexibility, adaptability part comes in of like, okay, what can I do differently now that's going to serve me better? I love how you keep using those words of what's going to serve me. And I think if you ask that question, right, and are really honest, you can say and point out things in your life that are no longer serving you.
Yeah, my mom and I kind of went through that with the whole Christmas dinner, right? It was a huge deal in our house. We had 30 people on Christmas Eve. It was a big deal. And we had different changes in our family dynamic. And then it's just a lot of work. And so we got to the point, and we discussed it, and we decided we're going out Christmas Eve. And so there's only 3 or 4 or 5 of us who can do it. And we made that change. And there was a grief period for that tradition and for that gathering of people. But now it's so much fun. And we like, okay, what can we do this year?
Yeah.
So I think that, there are things that you just come to a point in life where it's like, okay, I don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
With that example, though, I think you're still embracing the value, right? The value is family time together.
Right.
And how we did that is going to change over the years. It used to be a big family gathering where we're all cooking, and now we just go out. But the quality time, that's what you're getting at. That's
So important to focus on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about, are there types of self-care that people maybe overlook because at the time you're doing it, it's not like enjoyable? You know what I mean? Do you have any examples of things like that we might not think of?
Oh, that we might not think of. Those are all the things that are hard in the moment.
Yeah.
Right. But long-term benefits are going to outweigh that initial tension. Right. I think of training for a marathon.
Yeah.
Not that I've ever ran one, but like, you need it.
I mean, we can only imagine.
Right? You're running and you're like breaking down your muscles so that they build back up stronger. And I think self-care in a lot of ways is like that, right? Setting boundaries is hard and it's painful, and the person you're setting boundaries with might not be receptive, might change the relationship.
Right.
So thinking about the long-term benefit, not only to you, but to the people around you is going to help you get through that initial tension phase.
Yeah, that's, I've been thinking, as we're looking a lot at what do you need to live a long and healthy life, we know women, especially strength training, is really important. And I can get up and do cardio every day, right? And I love it. And the strength, I'm like, ugh. But thinking about what you just said, right, is my life's going to be so much better in terms of being able to function, in terms of having an easier life later, and where I don't maybe have as much stress if I just did it. So I need to, do you have any tricks for that?
It depends on your personality, right? Do you a person who likes routine and structure? Do you like things written down? Or are you flexible? And
I'm more but I think it would be good for me, so I'm going to write it down.
Yes, make a plan. Okay. Write it down, make it visible in a spot that you see all the time.
Okay. All right.
Something we touched on a little bit before we started recording this is the idea of what people think is normal for the aging process and what's not. And that you had a really interesting stat about older adults and mental health. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is from the World Health Organization. Right now, about 14% of adults over age 70 have a mental health disorder or condition. That's diagnosed. I think we all know that oftentimes it goes undiagnosed. And I think one of the reasons for that is that people assume that aging looks a certain way. So if someone starts to isolate or withdraw, they think that's a normal part of aging when it's not, right? Depression is not a normal part of aging. And so we want to make sure that people are getting the help they need, that they are attending to those needs of self-care so that they can prevent those mental health conditions as they age.
So if you're, as a family member, seeing those signs and symptoms in your loved one, how do you broach the subject with somebody that they may need help? Because not everyone's going to be open to hearing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's also so important for everyone to maintain their autonomy and their choice.
Yeah.
So trying to force someone to do something is not going to be helpful. So I definitely want to encourage open-ended questions. So rather than being, telling them what to do or having a closed question, but giving open-ended questions to say, what would help you feel supported today, right? Yeah. What helps you feel more like yourself today? And I say today because it might be different tomorrow.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's like, we're going to help you today. What do you need today?
Yeah. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about that aging is a team sport, right? And living is really, let's be honest, right? We need each other. And I was thinking about a book I had read it was a lot of research into belonging. Actually, it's the book Belonging that was written by our former Surgeon General, or Together was the name of it. But anyway, one of the really interesting things is that loneliness begets loneliness, right? And the more lonely you are, the more your brain's going to perceive other people as a danger or a slight. If, Pam said something to me, if I'm lonely, I'm more likely to be like, oh, well, I'm going to stay away from Pam. And so first of all, what is your take on how much that matters? And do you have any thoughts, suggestions on how, if somebody's caught in that, how they can get out of it or how we can help people get out of that?
Yeah. I didn't look up this stat recently, but a few years ago when I researched this, 60% of adults say that they experience loneliness.
Yes. Wow.
That's a huge number.
It is.
And so it's a very common problem. I think we're feeling just more isolated and disconnected than ever. But as you said, I think community is so important. It's important to engage. And I love your model of care because you provide so many opportunities for people to get involved and do activities, be around each other. So I think it's encouraging that. When you see someone isolating or withdrawing, kind of asking them what's going on, asking what we can do to support you again. But even just the one-on-one conversation can help with loneliness. It doesn't have to be a huge group setting.
Yeah.
And I think that's a key point because not everyone wants the hugeness, but to really think about who's my millage?
Yes.
Who do I interact with on a daily basis? Even if it's just 3 people, that's still better than just being on your own and isolating.
And going back to the what do I need today?
Yeah.
Like maybe it's too overwhelming to think about next week or whatever.
Right.
But what do I need today? Yeah. Maybe today I go have coffee with somebody or whatever, right? Okay. Thank you. That's really helpful.
On that topic, Pam, of just like maybe it's not quantity of relationships anymore, but the depth.
The depth of the quality.
Yeah, a depth of relationship that is what you need at that point.
Yeah, exactly. You all have so many resources. Grace Counseling is a faith-based group here in Colorado. What kind of things do you provide online, or if people were interested in learning more?
Yeah, so Grace Counseling, it's a group practice right here in Denver. We also serve Colorado online, so we can do online counseling. Because we're a group practice, we do specialize in many different areas. So we see kids as young as 5, and then adults across the lifespan, couples, families. So we have a lot of different services that way, just in terms of counseling services. We also provide testing if people need psychological testing. And then online, our resources are, we have a blog, social media. We're always trying to just promote mental health and wellness, providing resources for just like, what do I do in this situation of if I'm feeling anxious or depressed or experience trauma?
And you try to be available to everybody because you're a nonprofit, right?
Yes.
And you do fundraise for people who can't afford care,
Right.
and that's very similar to what we do because we fundraise to help residents who've outlived their means or team members who have a critical need. So I think it's really important that people understand that you're a nonprofit doing this.
We are. So yes, we do have our scholarship fund. People apply for it, and then we award sessions just based on their need. And then another great way that we can provide lower cost counseling is through partnering with churches. So a lot of times churches will pay for people's sessions. So that's another way that people can get in and get the help that they need, even if they don't necessarily have the means to do it.
I just like to always we're a nonprofit.
Yeah,
I like to absolutely support other nonprofits.
Right.
Just want to make sure we
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
That's really, really incredible and so important. Are there a couple simple acts of self-care that you can recommend that can make a big impact for people?
It's going to be the same question we've asked throughout this conversation is, what do I need? I think some people don't know where to start because they don't actually know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
Right. And that changes through our life.
Right.
So practicing self-reflection, because that looks different for people too. Some people like to journal. Some people just need time in their bubble bath to just decompress and have some self-reflection there. Other people need to talk it out with someone. So if you can give yourself space for self-reflection and then ask that question of, what do I really need? From there, you can start making your self-care plan, right? And kind of identifying these 5 categories. Maybe there's one that's a little low.
Yeah.
What can I do to fill that?
Say a little bit more specific.
So it's not aspire. So spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, and emotional.
So, ideally, are you trying to find little bits of all of those every day? Okay.
Yes. So I think if one of those categories is low, you're going to just feel off balance.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're a whole person. All of those parts matter. So I think a great practice would be to list those and start listing the things that you are already doing in your life that would fit in that category. I'm a visual person, so I like to see things written out. So if I see that written out and then I'm like, oh, that category only has one thing.
Right.
It was okay. That's something I need to pay attention to and maybe find some ways of bolstering that back up.
Yeah, I like that.
We'll put a link in the podcast model.
For sure. That's really good. I like that. That makes it much more simple. And finding a little thing you can do in each of those areas.
Maybe not each day, but each week is to find that. Right. Yeah, I think that's.
I also do want to point out, though, that self-care is not always about adding more.
Yeah, okay.
Sometimes it is about removing things.
Okay, that's
a
huge point.
Yeah, if our calendar is way too busy, we don't even have the time for self-reflection. Okay, what can be cut? What can be put on pause? So that you have more space and capacity.
Yes. Like, I love a weekend where I don't have anything planned. Yeah, I can get up and go for a walk in the morning and listen to the birds singing. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. What else? What do you want to make sure that people who are listening or watching take away from this?
I think another misconception of self-care is that it can be a reward. Like, once I do the hard thing, then I get to reward myself. So I like
the chocolate cookie.
Yes. Yeah. So just knowing that, like, this is essential. Like, this is something that you're doing to maintain your emotional health. Like, this is not something you're doing as a reward or a treat. But this is just an essential practice.
So you deserve it no matter what. Yeah. And we need it no matter what.
It's not dessert. It's sea diving. Yeah.
Right.
It's part of thriving. Yeah.
That really helps to reframe that for me. Yeah. That's really good. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And thank you to everyone who joined us today. Please share Aging Unscripted with your friends and families and coworkers. Follow us on your favorite streaming app. And we're so glad to have you here today on Aging Unscripted. A reminder that aging is indeed unscripted. Everybody has a journey that's as individual as they are. Thank you for being here with us today, Danica. We really appreciate you and your work. And thank you, Pam.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this conversation.
Yes, and it's so important. So please, folks out there, share this. And I think if we all do a little bit, what kind of world would it be if we all took a little better care of ourselves, right? Maybe we would all just get along better and the world would be a little more peaceful.
I would hope so.
I would hope so, too.
Yeah.
I like it. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.